welcome to the deep dive. You showed a really interesting video presentation with us recently. We've been looking it over.
Yeah.
And the core idea is something that, well, it might not hit you straight away. How the way we talk to AI, day to day at work, can actually ripple out and affect our relationships with our human colleagues.
It really does make you stop and think, doesn't it? We often think, okay, humans here, tech over there, separate boxes.
Right.
But this presentation, it makes a pretty strong case that those lines are maybe blurrier, especially when you look at communication habits.
Exactly. So the big question it digs into is, how does this pattern, this habit we're forming of just like ordering AI bots around, how does that potentially change how we talk to the actual people we work with?
It's a really timely question for, pretty much any workplace now.
Totally.
And the video goes into the psychology of how habits get wired in. It uses this analogy, which I found quite helpful, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it paints the brain as this kind of biological computer, always learning, always reinforcing patterns. So every single time we tell an AI, do this, find that, write this email, we're basically running reps, reinforcing a commanding style in our own heads.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. The video really highlights the difference. I mean, it's almost absurd when you picture it, walking up to a colleague and saying, generate that sales report immediately.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't.
Absolutely not. It sounds ridiculous. But yeah, that's often how we default with AI, isn't it? Just issue the command.
So the subtle risk here, as the presentation points out, is that as AI gets more and more woven into how we work,
Which it is, rapidly.
these sort of short, sharp, commanding ways of talking could maybe gradually start to color our human interactions. And we might not even notice it happening.
Exactly. It's not like a switch flips and suddenly you're rude. It's more about these patterns getting stronger subconsciously, just through sheer repetition.
Right. Now, I bet some people listening are thinking, hang on, I can totally switch gears.
Yeah.
I know how to talk to a bot, and I know how to talk to a person. They're different.
Yeah, that's a natural reaction.
What does the presentation say about that? About keeping those styles separate?
It tackles that head on. Well, yes, consciously, we absolutely believe we can code switch like that. The sort of psychological understanding of habit formation suggests that, the pattern you practice most often, that's likely to become your go-to, your dominant mode, even subconsciously.
Like muscle memory, almost, but for communication.
Pretty much. Think about learning anything, the way you drill it is the way it sticks, right?
Yeah, that tracks. So even if some people are better at separating than others, the video's main point is that generally aiming for respectful communication all the time.
Right.
Well, it probably benefits all our interactions, human or AI.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it gets into that question, why be polite to a machine? It doesn't care.
Right, the why bother question.
And the answer in the presentation is quite pragmatic. It's not about the AI's feelings because, it doesn't have any.
Obviously.
It's about us. It's about safeguarding our own ability to communicate well with other humans. If our default becomes command, we risk maybe weakening our collaborate muscle.
Okay, and here's where the presentation brings in something really relevant for a lot of workplaces, especially in product and service management. Agile.
Ah, yes.
Good connection.
Because Agile puts such a huge emphasis on human interaction, on collaboration.
Exactly. And the video argues that those core Agile values, teamwork, talking openly, feedback loops, they actually give us a really good framework for how to engage with AI too.
So thinking of AI less like a vending machine and more like a potential team member within that Agile process.
That's the idea. It shifts the dynamic towards something more collaborative, more communicative.
I like that framing. And speaking of tools, the video also uses the tool analogy itself, but from a slightly different angle. It does. It basically asks, look, if you wouldn't treat your human teammates like simple tools you just order around,
No, you wouldn't.
then why adopt that stance with AI? Especially when these AI interfaces are often designed to feel quite human-like in how we interact with them. It just argues for consistency and respect.
What really caught my eye, though, was this sort of unexpected potential benefit the video touched on, that interacting with AI might actually help us get better at talking to humans. How does that work?
Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it? The idea is AI can be a kind of safe space, a low-stakes environment to practice certain communication skills.
Like what?
Like, say, clearly explaining what you need, or maybe even phrasing feedback constructively. Because there's no social awkwardness, no reading emotions. You can just focus on honing the skill itself. Then you can hopefully apply that refined skill more effectively with your colleagues.
That's a really cool counterintuitive point.
Hmm.
The video then gives a concrete example, right? Showing the difference between commanding and collaborating using code review.
Yes, exactly. It contrasted something like, find errors in this code, very blunt,
Yeah.
with a more collaborative prompt like, could you please review this code and highlight any potential issues or areas for improvement?
Much more how you'd ask a developer on your team,
Hmm.
especially in product management.
Precisely. And the video suggests that often that second approach doesn't just feel better. It actually gets better. More nuanced results from many AI models, too. They respond better to politeness and context.
So pulling it all together, the main thread seems to be, this isn't really about being nice to the AI for its sake. It's about protecting and maybe even improving our own crucial human communication skills
Hmm.
in a world where we're interacting with AI more and more.
That's the core message, yeah. And the video boils it down into some pretty clear takeaways for you, the listener. First, just
Yeah.
notice. Pay attention to how you are talking to AI.
Become aware of your patterns.
Right. And then ask yourself, would I talk to a human colleague this way, especially in my product or service team?
Good self-check. What's the second point?
Make a conscious effort to practice more respectful, more collaborative communication with the AI. Treat it, perhaps, more like a junior teammate in that agile sense we discussed.
Frame it as collaboration.
And third, try to see those AI interactions not just as tasks to get done, but as little opportunities like micro workouts to actually strengthen the positive communication habits you want to use with people.
Okay, so this deep dive into the video really drives home that the future of work, especially thinking about product and service management, it really relies on humans and AI working together effectively.
Absolutely.
And the foundation for that has to be keeping our human-centered communication skills sharp, maybe even enhancing them, right? It's
Yeah.
about building respectful, productive habits all around.
Which really leads to a final thought, a question for you to maybe reflect on. As you use AI tools day to day, what patterns are you falling into? And are there maybe small tweaks, small adjustments you could make to make sure your communication style works well for both the tech and, more importantly, for the people you collaborate with?
That's a great question to leave things on. And look, if this conversation has got you thinking and you want to explore these ideas in more depth, we definitely encourage you to click on the thumbnails or the links you see in the description. You can watch the original video presentation yourself.